Greetings, Ranger fans. Jake here for a deeper look at episode 18 of Power Rangers Dino Fury, Crossed Wires. But first, a rapid run-through. Let's kick off the counter. It's morphin' time! Okay, so we open on Pine Ridge High School with Izzy and Fern.
Her girlfriend, Fern.
Who gives Izzy a peck on the cheek and wishes her luck retaking her electronics test.
Totally got this.
So she heads out and Izzy's joined by the others, including Ollie, who offers help on studying for the test.
Totally got this.
Solon calls them over to Haverly Park, where a bunch of people are napping on the ground and where Warden Garcia is investigating until he gets hit by a puff of purple smoke.
Nap time, kids.
Solon then calls Zato, Ollie, and Amelia over to the old chemical plant, while Izzy follows a whirring sound over to a sleep beam device, warning the others to watch out and leading Ollie to find a similar one at the chemical plant that he quickly disarms.
Super easy.
Ollie tells Izzy she should be able to disarm it herself, then gets distracted by the henchman and a new Sporks beast.
Stone snare.
So he, Zato, and Amelia morph while Izzy's left to disarm the device on her own.
Totally got this.
Except not really, because she pulls the capacitor instead of bypassing it, causing a discharge that frees the park nap party but knocks out Ion and Javi. So she teleports them back to Solon, while the others destroy Stone Snare and join them with the Sporks and Sleep Trap in tow, where Izzy has a confession.
She totally does not get electronics.
Ollie's upset at her for not accepting his help, but Solon convinces him to help Izzy help him reverse the polarity on the Sleep Trap to help Javi and Ion.
Yay for hands-on learning!
Meanwhile, Void Knight repairs the other Sleep Trap while Mucus reports on Ollie and Izzy's deactivation attempts and the other two Sporks beasts.
Stone sad and stone mad.
Mourn the loss of their brother until Void Knight gives them a chance at revenge with his brand new Mega Sleep Bomb, just as Ollie and Izzy wake Javi and Ion.
Works better than pancakes.
The Rangers teleport to the park to fight the Sporks and henchmen, while Ollie deactivates the bomb, but he gets ambushed by the repaired Sleep Trap, leaving things to Izzy while the others morph and summon their Zords to combat the now giant-sized Stone sibling.
2-on-2 Megazord fight time.
But then Stone Sad and Stone Mad combine to make Stone Rad, so the Rangers combine the Tyrannosaur, Mosasaur, and Dimetrazord into the Fusion Ultrazord.
Still smaller than the monster.
But they still take out the jumbo-sized Sporks beast with a Fusion Ultra Strike before teleporting down to join Izzy as she finishes disarming the Mega Sleep Bomb just in time.
Probably should have kept an eye out for Mucus grabbing those Sporks, though.
The next day, Izzy retakes her test, Fern reveals she aced it, the Rangers all congratulate her, and Pop Pop randomly shows up for some leaf blower shenanigans so Izzy can put her new electronic skills to the test with hands-on experience.
Roll credits.
And that's the end of the episode. Now, let's take a deeper look. So, I'm gonna be upfront. This might just be one of my favorite episodes of Dino Fury thus far, and a big part of that is because I just so happen to be a physics teacher, and I found everything surrounding the moral of the day, or perhaps more the personal challenge of the day, to be deeply relatable. Like, yes, when you are used to being a good student who is able to pick things up quickly, there is absolutely an instinctual sense of denial and shame that comes with suddenly encountering an unexpected academic challenge. And those feelings can be extremely difficult to overcome. And I felt like demonstrating that journey through Izzy's struggles with electronics class was handled absolutely wonderfully. I've had so many students like this over the years, and at times even been that student when taking physics graduate courses, which are just as challenging as they sound. But it's really the execution that made this episode work for me. As you may have noticed from past reviews, while I absolutely appreciate their value, I have often been critical of standalone episodes that focus on the lesson of the day. And much of that comes down to things like how effectively the lesson is communicated and how well the civilian plot is integrated with the Ranger plot. Although episodes like this are often dismissed as filler, there is a delicate science to actually balancing all the different elements successfully, conveying the lesson in such a way that is relatable and understandable for small children without being too clumsy or overly reductive. And this episode absolutely nailed that. And this is in part because the writers chose to focus on the difficulties of overcoming a challenge rather than presenting a character flaw in need of correction. Quite often, episodes like these tend to present the primary character exhibiting a behavioral trait that is clearly being framed in a negative light from the outset, heavily telegraphing exactly the lesson that will be learned, and shaping the Ranger plot in such a way that it parallels that lesson, even if not necessarily directly applicable to the situation at hand. Dino Fury has already had a number of episodes that fall into this general structure, including the episode immediately preceding Crossed Wires, Our Hero, where the lesson of heroes not needing rewards was immediately telegraphed by Javi declining the free ice cream, leading to Ion then making a series of obvious mistakes that culminate in obvious consequences. Despite the fact that the mistakes that led to consequences were really more about showboating than accepting free stuff. And this disconnect has been a recurring problem throughout a number of Dino Fury episodes, usually involving Ollie for some reason. I mean, he has had the most focus episodes so far, with Sporks Unleashed, Cut Off, old foes, and Storm Surge, but in each case, despite his arrogant and disrespectful behavior clearly being a source of conflict, the lessons learned always seem to be just missing the mark, usually emphasizing his focus on logic and technology rather than actually addressing his character flaws directly. Which is one of the reasons that it's so fascinating that this episode, where Ollie is not even the primary focus character, probably has his best development yet, as he is the one who actually needs to change his behavior in order to resolve the conflict, learning to exhibit patience and compassion for someone who does not share his same affinity for science and technology. Plus, he was the one who received the mentor talk from Solon, not Izzy. And I also just love that Solon acknowledges the pedagogical value of project-based learning. That's just amazing to me. These are the elements that really make this episode stand out from the typical moral of the day standalone. Far too often, the central character will demonstrate some flaw to present an example of inappropriate behavior that must be corrected. Instead, here we have the central character displaying a struggle that another character must then learn to accommodate for. On so many levels, this is a far more relatable and applicable situation, as people rarely have flaws that just show up out of nowhere and are quickly corrected, but they do very often learn about the struggles of others and then have to make efforts to correct their behavior to accommodate for this new information. I mean, not everybody actually does that, but they generally should. And that was covered in this episode too by having Ollie initially react in anger to Izzy's confession, before then being convinced to put aside his instinctual frustrations for the good of his team. Which is not to say that all the responsibility is laid down upon Ollie. Izzy is obviously the main focus character here, as she is the one with the active conflict that is introduced at the start of the episode and needs to be resolved by its end. And this is a great character thread as well because despite Izzy having to apologize for being dishonest about her confidence levels and learning to accept help from others, it's not framed as her just doing the wrong thing and having to learn to do the right thing, but instead her struggling to react appropriately to a stressful and unfamiliar situation. It's not a typical morality play, it's a character journey. And ironically, despite all the traditional stereotypes, this makes it a lot more like MMPR. Many of the classic standalone stories from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers were not about the Rangers cluelessly screwing something up and then learning it's just wrong to lie or wrong to do this or wrong to do that. The actual bread and butter episodes were about facing real-life challenges and then seeing those challenges reflected in high-stakes fantastical conflicts. Trini being afraid of heights, Billy getting his first B, Zach struggling to impress Angela, Kimberly being stressed out over her float, Jason wanting to break her weightlifting record. None of these stories required the Rangers really having to learn anything other than how to overcome their own personal challenges through determination and mutual support. That's exactly the kind of story that's being told here. And it's actually kind of weird how rare that's become. Here, the normally competitive and competent Izzy is faced with a situation that she just does not know how to cope with, even though she is genuinely trying to do the right thing by being independent, thinking positively, and studying in the only ways she's ever known how, only to continually fail as the stakes continue to rise. But seeing her overcome these challenges through perseverance, through being honest with her friends, through accepting help, and through Ollie putting his ego aside to trust her and help her through her journey, helps to convey to the audience that these challenges can be overcome, even when the fate of the world is at stake. They're being role models. Which doesn't mean that they don't have problems, just that they show you how those problems can be overcome. Now, I will admit this episode is not perfect, as I don't think any episode ever really is. The trio of sports beasts don't appear to have any particular thematic relationship to the rest of the story, and the Fusion Ultrazord, despite reflecting the general theme of teamwork, doesn't really have much emotional weight to its introduction, as the actual climax lies in Izzy's ability to disarm the Mega Sleep Bomb. But this episode does an excellent job of aligning the lesson, the civilian plot, and the Ranger plot together and grounding them in a very relatable real-life scenario that kids can genuinely learn from. Seriously, as an educator, I cannot tell you how valuable it is for students to learn how to ask for help and experiment with different learning techniques. It's great. And I don't want to shortchange the villains here. Void Knight continues to be awesome. His plan with the sleep bombs once again demonstrates his technical prowess, while simultaneously remaining totally in line with his season-long goal of collecting the Sporks. Not to mention that he does test trials and actually updates and revises his plan as new information becomes available, repurposing the damaged sleep bomb into a trap for Ollie once it's been discovered by Mucus that he's the only one supposedly capable of disarming the devices. And they don't telegraph any of this. None of the characters give anything away until it's appropriate for us to know. We don't find out about Void Knight's plan until after the reveal of the 2 sleep bombs, we don't know about his trap for Ollie until after it's sprung, and perhaps most importantly, despite knowing from the outset that Izzy is having some kind of difficulty with electronics, we don't know the exact nature of the problem until she is ready to share it. I just got a lot of positive feelings from this episode. Enough that I can put aside that Ion's puns kept the Rangers from collecting 2 Sporks, and that Pop Pop basically came out of nowhere for that final comedy sting, especially since the latter still did connect to the lesson of the day, once again harkening back to those classic stories from MMPR. Plus, Fern and Izzy... Fizzy? Fizzy's officially a thing! Go Fizzy! I can't even imagine Amelia's fresh-baked pancakes being any sweeter than that. Baked pancakes. So make sure to join me next time for a deeper look at episode 19 of Power Rangers Dino Fury, The Makeover. And if you would like to share this week's rapid run-through, you can find it as a standalone clip over at Morphin Legacy's YouTube channel. Please like, share, subscribe to us both, ring the bell for future notifications, and, until next time, farewell Ranger fans, and let the power protect you.